Chapter 40. Anne never went out. The girls who bullied her from school lived close by. I was outside, she was stood in the doorway. I told her about giving my word to Alan, and that my grandparents were dead. I didn't tell her how, but I did tell her that I've made myself a promise never to break my word again, ever. You have some strong morals, and that's a good thing, she told me as I moved into the hallway. I didn't know what morals were. She had to explain. I told her I've done some bad things too. Things that I blame myself for and couldn't tell her about, but that would never hurt her. Okay, she said innocently. I desperately wanted to hold her and tell her that she's amazing, but I didn't. I couldn't. One day I'd have to tell her everything, and that would hurt her. I couldn't have that. But then I was leaving, and had no reason to drag her into my world. Mark and I had taken Geordie for a walk over the fields for a few hours, when I spoke for hours about Anne. "Good night, guys," I shouted to her parents as I stood leaning in through the front door. "Later, mate," I said to Mark as he turned into the kitchen. I noticed Anne stood in her pyjamas on the bottom step of the stairs looking straight at me. She was stunning. I used her full name. "Good night, Anne," etc., etc., I said and walked out. I didn't see Anne for a few days, but I never stopped thinking about her. Why would people bully them? They were perfect as people and as a family. I was tired from working, and Pip and Tony were getting the arse because I used the place as a bed and breakfast. Wenzel said I should spend some time with them whilst he picked some things up from the flat and moved them in. I was less excited than I thought I'd be, but at least I'd be back with family. Wenzel needed a hand a few times, so I'd help with lifting furniture. His backpack didn't play up unless I asked him how his back was, in which case he'd tell me. I'm always in pain, but I'm not a pussy, or similar. On a comical note, we had to wait to park up his battered old Rover, because a van was unloading sand. This lad flipped a bag of it over his shoulder, like I did daily with the potato sacks at work. However, he put too much power into the throw and chucked it straight over his shoulder. The bag exploded on the road in front of him. We sat there straight-faced while this poor fellow cleaned up all the sand, burst into fits of laughter the second he drove away. Wenzel wanted a black ash theme for his oriental figures, little men with fishing rods, etc. Odd, really, as he had no interest in China or Japan or any connection with them. He was also quite racist. If we went into a shop and the cashier wasn't English, he'd walk back out again. He decorated the living room with stripes on the bottom and fleur-de-lis patterns on the top, with a dado rail to separate the two. I got no say in anything, naturally, apart from my room. I did try to tell him the fleur-de-lis pattern he hadn't been done correctly, at which point he told me I've matched them up and they're fine, they're done, in a tone which said don't mention it again. So I didn't, and his fleur-de-lis, as far as I know, are still on the wall, upside down, to this day. I wanted to know about Mum before I moved in. "Can I ask you something?" I said as he stood leaning next to the kettle in the flat in the kitchen. "Yeah, anything," he replied. "It's about Mum," I said, stood against the wall beside him. I was aware to get out I'd have to walk around him and his hot kettle to reach the door. "What happened that night?" I asked. "We were arguing about the kids. She wanted to pick Jonathan up, just Jonathan, and move back to Mac." He said it like he was reciting from a script. There was no emotion in his voice. "Yeah?" I asked. "Well, I said no, because Clive was there. She said she was going anyway. She'd had enough of life and being homeless. We'd get all the kids and move back to Mac," he added. I said we couldn't because of Caroline and with Leslie living there, but she said we could live with Betty until we got our own place, he recounted. We argued around and round. Then I saw red, I picked up a knife, and he made a single stabbing gesture. "Just once?" I asked. "Yeah," he said. Then I realised what I'd done. I handed myself into the police. They said I'd walked around a while, but I don't remember. I was out of it. He told me this looking up from his cup and making eye contact. He was pretending. Something wasn't adding up. He was trying to read me. "Okay," I said. "Here's your brew. It's just like you," he said, passing me the cup. "Huh?" I asked. "Weak," he said, laughing at his own joke. "So you want to live with me or what, now you know everything?" he asked. He was lying, I could feel it. The story was too easy to tell, like he'd had it written out 100 times. And when he said everything, his voice faltered slightly. I didn't know everything, that much was clear. My mind swam with options. Kate? No. Anne? No, maybe. But it didn't leave room for Jonathan and Jodie and Caroline. Yeah, of course, I said, pushing the image of a big house with a white picket fence back into my mind where we were all playing in the garden. This is your room, he showed me before we left for Pip and Tony's. It was large and had a single bed, wardrobe, chest of drawers, and a huge bookcase in it. I know you like to read. You can put all your wildlife fact files in here, he said, tapping the bookcase. I won't go in your room, and you don't come into mine, okay? He said jovially. Cool, looks good, I said honestly, picturing Anne lay on my bed. Somehow the image didn't fit. I couldn't make her or me smile in the image whilst Wenzel was in the flat. Can I put a dartboard on the door? I asked him. Sure, he said. I used to play at Brenda's, and I think of this day all the time, but Jonathan, Jodie and Caroline were here too. I told him my turn, but my voice to falter. This time was with emotion. Soon we'll get the bastards, he snarled. He made me jump. He meant the social workers. They never understood me, what I went through with her. But you understand, don't you? His eyes met mine again. They'd turned colder, there was no emotions. He wasn't seeing a person anymore. I'd become an object again. By her, he'd meant Mum. Yeah, I'm sure, I said. Good. Remember, don't go in my room, he said with a cold, serious breath. I don't want you rooting in my stuff, he added, half lifting his arm to point at me, but not quite making a pointing gesture. I couldn't help but realise that I'd heard that line somewhere before. Okay, Dad, I said, smiling. Instantly cooled him. I was at Mark and Anne's with Geordie. Came to show Anne my dog. I told her Mum who knew I wanted Anne to come out. Mark and Anne appeared in the doorway. I made a fuss at Geordie, who lapped up the attention. Coming out? We're going walkies, I asked Anne. She shook her head and stepped back. Go on, you'll be fine, her Mum said. Mark, hold this, mate, I said, passing him the lead. Stepped into the hall and nodded to Anne's mum, who made herself busy in the kitchen. I stood right in front of Anna, took her hands in mine. Do you trust me? I asked her. She nodded, looking down at the floor. Remember what I said about my granddad? I asked her. She nodded slightly. Yes, she said almost inaudibly. What I'm going to say now isn't easy for me, but it's true, okay? I asked her. I got another nod. I give you my word whilst you're with me. I will not let anyone hurt you. I won't hurt you, and neither will anyone else. I'd really like you to come out with me, but if you don't want to, that's okay, it's your choice. What do you say? I released her hands and held Anne by my sides. I heard her mum let out a sniffle from the kitchen. Anne looked me in the eyes, and I'd seen all I needed. Come on, I said, smiling, grabbed her coat from the bottom of the stairs. Have fun, her mum shouted as we left. We walked the dog, stood in a three, Mark, me, and then Anne. We reached the woods. I let Geordie off the lead, and Anne took my hand without a word, and I felt happy. She'd made that move. I told them I was leaving soon. You'll never see us again, Anne stated, recited her mum's words. I'll visit, I promised. Mum's always right echo went unsaid. School was pretty much off the entire week. I was helping Wenzel decorate at work, or where I really wanted to be, with Mark and Anne. If I wasn't watching films with their family, I was upstairs talking to Anne about everything from music to bullies, whilst Mark played Killer Instinct beside us. On another walk out, Anne had my hand and Mark was close by when Anne stopped dead in her tracks. A couple of girls and three lads came round the corner ahead of us. What's wrong? I asked, looking around. Ah, I said, noticing the problem. Ignore them, they won't do anything. Come on, I said, walking with her. I could feel the fear through her hand. She walked 3 steps and released my hand, but carried on walking. Oh, Annie's got a boyfriend, one of the girls shouted. Idiots, Mark murmured. I smiled down at Anne warmly whilst my blood boiled. What do you see in that? A lad shouted. 2 things happened simultaneously. In my head, the moment I heard that. One was, that, you're dead. And the second was remembering how I felt after Nigel stopped Lloydie from bullying me. I knew what had to be done. I was already 5 strides towards the lad who I recognised as the fat girl's brother. No! I heard Anne yell, and looked back briefly to see her curling into Mark's protective embrace. She was sobbing. Ah, she's crying, Fat Girl said at the same time I'd reached her brother at speed. What are you, I presume you was going to say, gonna do? I didn't give him the chance. I hit him square on the nose with a big hook. Fuck technique. I was mad. He flew back against the hedge. Before his hands had the chance to reach his face, I'd grabbed his shirt and headbutted him. His sister screamed, and their mate ran off, as did one of the boys. "Trace, leave it, it's okay," I heard Mark shout. "Listen, you little shit," I said, pushing his face into mine. I wanted him to know I was crazy. I wanted him to dream about me, to feel as every bit as scared as little Anne had, as my mum had. "If you go anywhere near that girl," I jabbed him in the face and pushed him into the hedge hard without releasing him. That brought him back towards me even faster, as his nose met my forehead, and I held him there. "I will bite your fucking face off." I sunk my teeth into his nose without drawing blood. "And," I said, now laughing like a maniac, "if you don't keep your bitch on a lead, guess what?" He was clearly crapping himself by now, not lifting his arms in case I hit him again. "That's right, I'll bite your face off," I said, laughing and rocking my head side to side, half deciding whether to nut him again or not. Okay, man, it's cool, he won't," his mate said, gingerly tapping my shoulder. I wasn't done yet. "You fucking want some?" I screamed into his face, turning onto him as well. He jumped at the reaction and fell over as I bumped into him. I walked back to Anne and Mark. "Anne, it's okay, it's done. They won't come near you again," I said calmly. You're just like them," she sobbed. To say that hurt would be an understatement. I felt like I'd just had a hook placed in my stomach, wrenched up into my throat, forcing my organs out through my nose. I wasn't angry. I was just empty. No, I had never hurt you," I said. "That was heartbroken. We walked off as a three. Me ahead with Geordie, and Mark beside Anne. 20 minutes of them talking and me not later, and Anne approached me from behind and slipped her hand into mine. "I'm sorry," I said. "I promised I'd never hurt you," I added, wiping a tear away and hoping she hadn't noticed. It was her turn to be strong. "They won't come back," she said, pulling my hand to her face and taking my other hand. "I'm okay, it's all right," she said, cracking me a smile. Fuck it, I hugged her, and it felt good. "Sorry, mate," I said to Mark. "It's okay. My mum said this would happen," Mark said. My best memory of this time wasn't going into the flat with Dad, wasn't skipping school with my mates or feeling a part of a family with Mark's parents. My best memory from this time, and for a long, long while later, was lying on my bed at Pip and Tony's with Geordie behind me when Mark and Anne walked in. "It's not much, but it'll do until I move," I said. Mark sat by my radio, flipping through my cassettes. Cool, shit, what's this?" he asked, finding a blank tape I'd taped over. Anne looked lost in the middle of the room. I smiled. She wore her hair down, white blouse and blue jeans. It was raining outside, so we were staying in. She sat down on the edge of the bed beside me as I lay down, her golden hair shimmering in the light. "Geordie, down," I said. He jumped off the bed, nutting Anne's hand for a stroke. "If he's bugging you, you can always lie down here with me," I smiled. "No, he's fine," she said, turning her head and catching my eye. Our eyes met and she caught herself. "Well, yeah, okay," she said, and lay with her back against me. We spent the next 2 hours making small talk with Mark. Anne purred when I ran my fingers through her hair. "When do you go home?" I asked. "I am home," I said, moving a strand of hair from her face and holding her a little tighter. Lola was playing on the radio, way in the back of my mind. I knew I would have to move soon. Chapter 41. Wenzel had to prove to the social workers that he was okay looking after me. We had a 3-month trial where a social worker came round weekly to check on me. During those 3 months, Wenzel took me to Wales to go hiking. I liked hiking, but not with him. It wasn't the same. He was very controlling and passed comment almost constantly. I was walking up a hill a little in front of him. "Oh, don't worry about your old dad, will you?" I ignored him. "Oh no, I only feed you, give you clothes, drive you to school. Don't worry about me. I even get a flat for you, but will you wait?" "No." I stopped and turned to him. I was calm. I'd half-tuned him out ages ago back at the car when he was complaining about never having a free ride when he was a kid, so I was happy. Just looking at the scenery. It was beautiful. It was grey, but it was beautiful. "You okay?" I asked him. "Yeah, don't know when I'm joking, idiot," he said. "My back's playing up, that's all," he added. "Do you want to rest?" I asked him half-heartedly. After all, he'd only walked up a very small hill. "No, rest is for pussies. You rest, I'll meet you at the top." So I let him go ahead. Come on, slow coach. Thought you were a big hard hiker, he shouted from his full-foot advance ahead of me. I've seen social workers faster than you. He laughed at his own joke.